Price. Got a question from a guy, not your uncle, Onkel. Hey Derek, love the channel. Thanks for providing such informative content for all of us. If I may, I'd like to ask Dr. Price a question about the history of two opposing doctrines in Christianity, Universalism and eternal damnation. What were the different views on these of Jews, Christians, Gnostics, and so on? And where did those beliefs come from? Why did eternal damnation eventually win in Christianity when there isn't any evidence of such a thing from the so-called canonical texts? Were there church fathers that taught universal salvation of everyone in some form and that hell was purgatorial rather than eternal? I've heard Origen believed in something like that. Also, what about belief in reincarnation amongst these sects? Thanks in advance, and also sorry if this had been asked before.
Yeah, I doubt if it had. There's a whole menu of options. In Judaism, you seem to go from this idea that the wicked have no place in the world to come. That's the phrase you hear. Way back there, they believed in Sheol, which is pretty much the same thing as the Greek Hades, and it wasn't a place of reward or punishment. You just continued in a shadowy existence in a great dusty twilight zone of a walled city under the earth. And they shared that in common with the Babylonians and Sumerians and so forth. But eventually they followed the Greeks in dividing Sheol, or Hades, into a place of reward, in Greek the Elysian fields, and a place of punishment, Tartaros. And Tartarus was originally the place underground where Zeus had imprisoned the giants and the titans after his victories over them. And then big sinners wound up there with tailor-made punishments, like Tantalus, who done something wrong, I forget what it is, but he was suspended in a lake. But he couldn't drink of it or anything else. Every time he tried to lap it up, it would sink lower, but he wouldn't. He was hungry, and there was a fruit tree right above him, but if he tried to reach it, it would go out of his reach. So that's where we get tantalized, of course. There was Ixion, who had done something, I forget this, but he was like crucified on a wheel. And then there was Sisyphus, who was condemned to, he'd been let out of Hades for some mission, but wouldn't go back. So they dragged him back, and he had to push this huge boulder up a hill every day and then watch it go back down. And, oh, well, there we go again. So they had various punishments. Let's see. The idea of a blazing hell caught on from Neo-Pythagorean missionaries from Sicily. Like Apollonius of Tyana was a late Neo-Pythagorean preacher. Well, there were a whole lot of these guys that fanned out all over the Mediterranean world, and they came from Sicily, where the geography featured fumaroles, volcanoes, lava pits, stuff like that. And so they figured these were gates to a fiery netherworld, and they spread this idea. And that dovetailed with an old Hebrew belief that there was a place called Gehenna, or Tophet, which was at the foot of Mount Zion. The tip of Mount Zion was heaven, almost literally. The altar there was the gate of heaven. And but down there, it was the gateway to the subterranean fiery kingdom of Molech, who was fed with infant sacrifices. And it wasn't a place of punishment or of conscious torment. He just ate burnt babies, as horrifying as that is. But at least you can draw the line. It wasn't the Gehenna of the New Testament, where it's evolved to the point of being a place of torment. The Gospels speak of both Hades and Gehenna, and they speak of the Gehenna of fire, and it's translated the fire of hell, but I'd rather not do that. I think it's important to maintain the distinctions. if anything, it kind of looks like hell was a place where nations went, wicked nations, though that's a little vague to me. But nonetheless, does the okay, back to Judaism. They eventually went the hell route and said that different sinners were going to receive horrible, tailor-made punishments too. That ascribed to Jesus was he would be forever in a vat of boiling dung. And they really hated that guy because of the demon Christians made of him, persecuting them. So they went from just mortalism, I guess you'd call it, that's the last of you, to post-mortem punishment. Eternal, apparently. Well, in early Christianity, you seem to have different ideas within the New Testament. Is there eternal torment anywhere? Yeah, I think there is in a couple of places. At least speaking of those who took the mark of the beast, Revelation says they are going to be tormented. The smoke of their torment goes up day and night forever and ever before the Lamb and so forth. That kind of seems to mean eternal damnation and conscious torment. It doesn't necessarily specify it for everybody, though, so were they specially reprehensible? It doesn't say. In Matthew, it says that those who rejected the gospel, the nations who rejected it, who didn't receive the preaching of Jesus' brethren, who, contrary to the social gospel, don't seem to be intended as the poor, the down and out. I hate to say that, but it seems to me it's just not about that. It's about the reception the wandering brethren who preached the gospel received. They're mentioned in 3 John and other places. So they, it says, are going to be shipped off to the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. Well, now, what do you make of that? Why would it be eternal fire unless you were going to be consciously burned in it forever? If you were an annihilationist like the Jehovah's Witnesses, they said, well, they are going to be tossed into the lake of fire, but they're going to burn up. What else could happen? Well, if you're talking about flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of heaven. Well, it couldn't inherit hell either. You would have to assume there was some sort of durable eschatological bodies for the damned, because they're going to a place where the worm does not die and the fire is never quenched. Well, if they're all going there at some point, why not put it out afterward, presumably, because they're still being punished? So the clear implication, I would say, is that Matthew at least believed in eternal torment. Doesn't explicitly say it. Now, Hosea Ballou, one of my favorite theologians, the second founder of American Universalism, he said that who are the people Jesus is consigning, or the Son of Man is consigning in that story? Well, he tells you who it was prepared for, the devil and the demons. So presumably Jesus is talking to them. If it's humans, why is he sending them there? That's sort of eye-opening. That doesn't seem stupid to me. In general, I mean, it doesn't fit with the nations that rejected the brethren in their preaching, but on the other hand, it does fit with this. And as John A.T. Robinson showed, this is a composite parable or whatever anyway, so we don't know. Well, was there mortalism, that the damned were simply dead? Well, yeah, you seem to have that in 1 Corinthians 15, that Christ is raised, and then each in his own order, Christ first, and then those who belong to Christ. And that's it. We don't hear anything about a resurrection of the wicked to face the music. They just are dead. Now, that's not the case in Acts, where Paul is portrayed as saying, I believe in the resurrection of the just and the unjust. I think somewhere else it says that too. Gospel of John also, the ecclesiastical redactors part of it. But 1 Corinthians seems to say that. However, what about universal salvation? Is that anywhere? Well, in Colossians, it says that all things were, which is a Gnostic work, I think, it says that everything was made in Christ, and that everything will return to him, will be fulfilled in him. And it says that he has reconciled all things in heaven and earth and under the earth, I think it says. Well, who's that got to mean? The damned, the demons, whatever. I mean, that certainly seems to be universal. Now, how about 1 Corinthians again? Earlier it says that as in Adam all died, in Christ all will be made alive. Did he just forget about the damned there? I mean, I guess he could have been, and that would be kind of a stupid mistake, but I don't assume that it is. I of course, think that they're patchwork quilts, and you have different views side by side. How about purgatorial hell? That seems to me implied in the statement where Jesus says, you better settle out of court before you get there, because you may lose, and then the bailiff will be carting you off to debtor's prison, and you're not getting out of there until you've paid every stinking cent of the debt you owe. And forgive us our debts. This seems to be about the final judgment, though it might not be. It could just be practical advice that, hey, look, don't be so quick to go to take people to court. Wouldn't it be better? I mean, there's a couple of other examples of that where it's just wise advice and etiquette. Don't take the chief seat at the banquet. Stupid, because it's probably not for you. Check the name card and go to the end. If you're in the wrong seat, they'll say, what are you doing down there? Come on up. And then everybody will say, wow, that guy really counts. Is Jesus Christ given advice like that? I guess so, or somebody thought it would be a good idea to have Jesus say it. So who knows? But this is, of course, where Catholics back up purgatory, that it's limited in time. You have quantifiable sins, like the great Catholic theologian Guido Sarducci said. They're 35 cents, the sins, but they mount up. And I don't know, in Buddhism and Hinduism, hell is always purgatorial. You are going to get out, but of course it may be several trillions of years from now, and by that time you're like, you're gone anyway. You don't even know where you are. But you do find a range of post-mortem ideas, but nothing beats the variety of Buddhist hells. There are hundreds of them, and they're tailor-made for different categories of sinners. And the sadistic fiendishness of the holy men that made this stuff up is unimaginable. You find stuff like it in the Apocalypse of Peter and then later in Dante's Inferno, but nothing as horrifyingly awful as in the hundreds of Buddhist hells.
Thank you, Dr. Bob.